Meteion, though I gave you wings to soar the heavens, I did not teach you how to walk the earth. So loath was I to bind another living being. In the course of your long journey, you will learn from those you meet, learn to walk and run and so much more. And when you return, older and wiser, we will have a celebration to mark your homecoming and coming of age both.
Will there be apples? Covered in syrup?
And how are you supposed to eat them? Rather than food, perhaps... a flower. Yes. Upon your return, I will gift you a beautiful flower.
Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, here today with why I love Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker! This time we're talking about Meteion, and in this series, I break Endwalker down to its characters and story moments and illustrate why they are so effective at conveying their themes and messages. Okay, real talk for a moment. Meteion was the perfect antagonist for this expansion, right? Like, we can all agree on this. And there's another question that I want to cover because it's one of the most important reasons that I adore this character so much. Is Meteion even a villain? So, I did what all YouTubers do, and I just searched up villain definition on Google, and this is what I got.
Villain. In a film, novel, or play, a character whose evil actions or motives are important to the plot. I have played more good guys than villains. It's a variant spelling of villain in archaic.
But I feel like what people mean when they talk about villains is that they're more referring to intent. Is this person doing this act or this series of acts out of malicious intent? Take Emmett Silk from Shadowbringers. That is a character who genuinely believed that he was doing the right thing. From his perspective, everything he did, every word he spoke, every plot he schemed, was in the service of saving his world. It's one of the reasons he is such an interesting character, who is worthy of his own video, so I won't dwell on him too much here. But that nuance is key, in that yes, from our perspective, Emmett is committing terrible atrocities and is literally ending worlds. But from his perspective, he's just trying to save the people precious to him and his own world. That nuance is what separates him from generic JRPG end boss number 516 to one of the best written video game characters of all time. From his perspective, he is just doing what so many of us understand. Safeguard those he loves. Safeguard his world, his family, his home. We understand that. We can relate to that. Even if we haven't had to go on a multi-millennia mission to do so, because the motivation behind his actions is an understandable and relatable one. And I see the argument floating around about who is the best villain in Final Fantasy XIV, and I just can't help but think that the question itself is flawed. Sure, we can spend days arguing about the intricacies of Emmett Silk and Meteion, and whoever you want, but they were never meant to be in competition with one another for best villain. They were meant to be cooperative, they work off of each other. One character makes the other better, one expansion fortifying the other. It's a synergy, people. One character's story leads and ties into the other. So yeah, Emmett is a fantastic character, one of my favorites, and he makes Meteion better, and Meteion makes Emmett better as well. And when you get down to it, that is how you write an engaging character. One that pulls the entire scene towards themselves whenever they show up, because they are that endearing, that impactful, and that wonderful to behold. We are interested in seeing their struggle, their reasoning, their ambition. We want to see all of that laid bare before us in full display because we want to glean whatever lesson, moral, or whatever else we can out of it. A character is a tool that is used to tell a story. A great character is one where you forget that fact, where you forget that they are a tool for a story. Meteion isn't the same. But the reason she works so well is due to a similar line of thinking. She's just a little girl at heart, people. She's not some big emperor hell-bent on taking over the world so that they can have complete control over everyone. She's not some evil clown that wants to see the world burn. She's not driven by greed, or jealousy, or pride, or anger, or vengeance, or any of that. She is driven by the fact that she, in her own way, just wants to save everyone. It just happens to be that she wants to save everyone from the cycle of death and life itself. And sure, on the surface that sounds like every Final Fantasy villain ever, but she is more than that. She's a deeper and more complex character than a simple cosmic horror or concept that wants to destroy everything. She saw through the veil. She and her sister saw the universe in all of its boundless beauty and found only pain, despair, anger, and desolation. That fact broke entire civilizations that had reached perfection. What do you think it was going to do to someone who was literally hardwired to resonate off of other people's emotions? No matter where she went, she found worlds on the brink of ruin, or that had collapsed under the most horrific conditions. And to quote Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, weird reference I know, but it works here, with all their sins laid before them. She saw every type of civilization that you can imagine. She saw the most brilliant minds in existence brought low by the sheer horror of their own discoveries. She saw people bore themselves to damnation out of their own perfection. She saw worlds conquered and saw the conquerors run out of purpose and drive and elect to wallow in stagnation. She saw people who had achieved absolute perfection beg for its release. She saw an inescapable and fundamental truth that all roads lead to the Reaper. Blue Oyster Cult can tell us all they want to not fear the Reaper, but it's coming regardless, and what awaits us, even if we manage to find immortality, is a frozen void of a universe that had the gall, the unmitigated audacity to never stop expanding. Under the weight of all of this, all these revelations, the weight of this inexorable reality, she collapsed. No one could take it. No one else could, especially someone like her. Like I said, who was designed to be empathetic, to relate, and literally feel the emotions of those around her. She did what was the only thing that made sense to her, that felt right. Break that cycle. Gather all the souls of all the living beings in the universe, bring them all to a dead star, and let them fade into nothingness so that they didn't have to hurt anymore. She is nihilism incarnate, devoid of hope and resplendent in despair. That right there is your final boss. Not some Lovecraftian horror, not the Emperor, just a little bird girl who saw just how cruel this universe can be. And actually is. Sure, we can beat her in a fight, but that's not the point, people. That was never the point of the fight. It was never the point of the character. We meet Meteion when we travel back to Elpis thanks to Doctor Who, and her two biggest concerns are that Hermes feels sad due to the fact he can't find meaning, and that he has to see creatures die for such a hypocritical reason. And her other chief concern, the other thing weighing down on her subconscious, she just wanted to eat a candied apple. Very simple and understandable worries for a child. Their parental figure is in distress and they want to help. And they also want candy. One of the very first things that she asks the player is to be her friend. And it's one of the last things she asks as well. So it all comes full circle. And you know what? For an antagonist introduced quite literally 3 levels before max, she makes the story. And I'm not just talking about Endwalker. I'm going all the way back to 1.0. She represents all that grief, that loss, that tragedy, the victims of war, Edda, Ilbert, the kobolds, and the various tribes. Everyone when Bahamut was let loose, the citizens of Ishgard when dragons ravaged their homes and tore apart their families. Esthinian, Nidhogg, Racefelger, the people of Alamigo and Doma, Yotsuyu, Gosetsu. The people of the First, Ardbert and his friends, Edith Selk and all the Ascians. The people of Thavnir during the final days. The people of Golemald who watched their once grand empire freeze and break away alongside their friends, family, and homes. To Hermes, to our fellow Scions who all experienced loss and tragedy, and finally all the denizens of distant stars who died out in a myriad cataclysms. All of those stories coalesce with Meteion. All those roads, all those tales, everything comes down to Meteion. She represents it all. She is that final barrier, that one last wall to overcome. And sure, she's not as great as an individual character than, say, Emmett Silk, but she doesn't need to be. She becomes a memorable and important character because of what she represents, and how she elevates all the characters that I just mentioned, and makes them all better, and makes them all more compelling. Characters like this have intrinsic value to storytelling, when they can stand on their own 2 feet as a character, but also just by existing, makes the character and the stories deeper, more compelling, and more meaningful. What this allowed was that the writers could use the rest of the time to develop each region we went to, and continue to develop old and new characters. We saw the Satrap be chain-chomped into the Shadow Realm. We saw Graha use some of their Crystal Exarch swagger again to rally the people against the end of days. We saw Urianger come to peace with the death of Moonbreeder and reunite with her parents in an extremely heartwarming scene. And we saw all the development of Estini and Alphino and Alize come to a head here, and make it all worth it. All that time, all that energy worth it, due to the direct results of Meteion's actions. She made those characters better, because they all had to overcome sadness and despair in some form, and she represents those emotions. All those overarching themes and motifs and stories they led back to Meteion, bringing them all to a head. With a character like Meteion, you cannot just look at her as a character separate from the story, because she is the story. We don't have Fandaniel or Hermes without her. She is the story of the Ascians, the story of Emet-Selch, Lahabrea, and everyone. Those stories do not exist without her. The story of Ana, Hydaelyn, and that entire theme of hope and darkness, and that one glimmer of hope in the darkest, blackest night requires Meteion. The idea that we are not perfect beings, we are not meant to be perfect beings, and that we use the adversity we face and the adversity that we have overcome to better ourselves, and that we are defined by the hardships that we have faced along our own journey. That hope is the light at the end of this cold, dark tunnel, and that all of this will have amounted to something beautiful, and maybe it's tangible, and maybe it's ethereal. But that at journey's end, we can look back and be proud of the road we walked while looking toward the future. Meteion was not only that little bird girl who had the weight of the grim cosmos thrust upon her shoulders, realizing this, but also us, the warrior of light, and us as people coming to terms with this inalienable truth. Because it's a hard one to swallow, it's a hard one to accept, but it's a necessity in order to find meaning out of life. That is why Meteion is such a good character, and that is why she is this story. She's able to make the message of Endwalker transcend from its binds as a video game, and help instill or reinstill in all of us that crucial, important message. Sure, this world may end at some point, and sure, the universe may expand into a cold, apocalyptic void, and sure, all we had to combat that fact is our hope, that our today's self is better than yesterday's, and that the us from tomorrow will be a better person than us today. And we walk one foot in front of another, because we don't have wings to soar the heavens, but damn it, we got feet to tread a path. And sometimes that's all we can do, and sometimes that's all we need to do. And that has a meaning, that has importance, that can make everything worth it. Sure, the Reaper may be waiting for all of us just as Meteion feared, but we are going to enjoy the time we got and find our own meaning to life, because maybe there is no universal meaning to life, and maybe it does come down to the individual to find their own path to walk, and their own meaning and dream to strive for. We can find meaning in those footfalls, and that was the lesson we had to teach to Meteion. It's okay to be sad, to be fearful, it's okay to be happy and hopeful, it's okay to feel. Just keep walking, and we can find a way. And if there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel, then fine by me, we'll just make one so that the people who come after us will have a light to guide their path as they choose their own path, as they close the distance on their own journey. It's easy for a game or a movie or a show or a book even to have a message that, oh, we all need to have hope to overcome evil, yay team! It's an entirely separate thing to make that message feel hopeful, to feel impactful, because Square Enix put the time in and the effort required to make that story work, and they did it through Meteion. Because I don't think anyone out there at any point actually wanted to kill Meteion. We all just wanted to save her, because we wanted to, you know what, no, we had to believe that she could be saved, and that she would finally get her flower. And you know what? She got it. Hermes may have taught her how to soar the heavens, but we taught her how to walk and run and so much more. Also, a brief sideline, there's an interesting storytelling mechanism being deployed here, where due to the current state of the world and how many people are feeling hopeless about it all, that Meteion can represent us, whereas the Warrior of Light, Emmett, and Hythlodaeus are the dev team trying to tell us these lessons. The writing team is very proficient at allowing multiple interpretations of a scene that on the surface has a correct interpretation, such as when Emmett and Hythlodaeus create the Field of Elpis blooms for Meteion. Just wanted to quickly touch on that. It wasn't that Meteion was trying to snuff out hope, even if that's what she said, quote-unquote. She simply didn't believe that there was any, outside of the grand delusions that are rooted in ignorance. But we saw what she saw. We saw those dead worlds, heard the findings of the Ea, saw the conquest of the Omicron, and saw our friends sacrifice themselves so that we could march ever forward. Like Emmett said, she couldn't deny it anymore. Hope, genuine hope, still remained, and that's all she ever wanted. That's what separates Meteion from so many generic JRPG end bosses. She wasn't on some grand conquest to destroy everything for some selfish goal. She was always selfless. She was simply doing what she thought was right. She wasn't some big boss where we had to use hope and friendship power to overcome and defeat. We had to use that hope, much like a flame, and light her candle, and show her that even if it's a small flame, it still burns bright and warm nonetheless. And it may not seem like much to someone who hasn't played the story, or hell, maybe it just didn't land for you, as well as it did for me, and that's fine. We all process stories differently, but this is what I liked about her as a character, and I wouldn't change it. Not a thing. My hat is off to everyone involved with the development of this character over at Square Enix. You did one hell of a job. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content. And while you're down there, leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the character of Meteion, and if you believe that she was a villain or not. I'd greatly appreciate it. And you may have a different perspective on her as a character than me. That's entirely fine. Like I said before, we all process these stories differently. And I want to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. So leave a comment down below with your opinions and your thoughts and your perspective. I'd love to read them. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a great day. Go play some video games and have fun. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
One day, life will fill the universe again, and Hermes will see this and smile. How, I do not know, but I do know that where there is a will, there is a way. After all, miracles happen every day, do they not?
Bereft of hope, and now dignity. I take solace, your radiance, in the knowledge you are not here to witness our debasement. 'Twas a grand, glorious dream we shared. Of a world united, of peace and prosperity. We are ghosts, you and I. Memories of days gone by. Bonds forged in blood that I will not see tarnished.